he found himself in a room that shouldn't exist. 7 beings sat in a semicircle, radiating light that had color but no source, and they spoke without words, telling him exactly why he'd been born, what he was supposed to accomplish, and why his current life felt so difficult. They'd planned it that way. The therapist's voice faded into background noise, becoming just another texture in the silence. Nathan felt his body relaxing completely, sinking into the chair until the boundary between himself and the cushions seemed to blur and disappear. His breathing slowed to almost nothing. His thoughts, usually racing and chattering, went quiet. And then he felt it, a lifting sensation, not physical. His body remained exactly where it was, but his awareness began to rise, to separate, to expand outward and upward like smoke drifting toward the ceiling. He could still feel the chair beneath him, still hear the soft music playing in the background, but these sensations were distant, less important than what was happening to his consciousness. He moved through darkness at first, not frightening darkness, but peaceful, like floating in warm water on a moonless night, and then light began to appear ahead of him, growing brighter as he moved toward it, not harsh or blinding but welcoming, gentle, familiar. He wasn't in the therapist's office anymore. He was somewhere else, somewhere that existed outside of normal space and time, somewhere he'd been before but had forgotten. Nathan Foster had come to Dr. Elizabeth Chen's office because his life felt wrong. Not bad, exactly. He had a decent job as an accountant, a small but comfortable apartment, a few friends. On paper his life was fine, but it felt hollow, empty, like he was living someone else's life, following someone else's script. He was 32 years old and could unshake the feeling that he was supposed to be doing something else, something important, but he had no idea what. The feeling had been with him his entire adult life, growing stronger over the years, a constant low-level anxiety that he was missing something, forgetting something, failing at something he couldn't quite remember. He'd tried traditional therapy, tried career counseling, tried dating apps and hobby clubs and volunteer work, thinking maybe he just needed to find the right relationship or the right passion. Nothing helped. The feeling remained persistent and nagging, like an itch he couldn't reach. A friend had suggested past life regression, not as a way to access previous lifetimes but as a way to access the space between lives. Dr. Chen specialized in what she called life between lives regression, a technique that took people not just into past lives but into the spiritual realm where souls existed between incarnations. Nathan had been skeptical. He wasn't particularly religious or spiritual, didn't really believe in souls or reincarnation or any of that, but he was desperate enough to try anything. So here he was, lying in a chair, being guided into some kind of deep hypnotic state, about to explore what his rational mind said couldn't possibly exist. Except now, moving through this space of light, Nathan felt his skepticism dissolving, because this felt real, more real than ordinary reality, more solid, more present, more true than anything he'd experienced in his waking life. He emerged from the tunnel of light into a vast, open space. It wasn't a physical place, had no ground or sky in the normal sense, but it had structure, had dimension, had a quality of being somewhere rather than nowhere. And he wasn't alone. There were other points of consciousness here, other souls or spirits or whatever you wanted to call them. He could sense them around him, each one unique, each one radiating their own particular quality of awareness. Some felt familiar, some felt like strangers, but all of them felt connected, part of a larger web or network of consciousness. And then, Nathan saw them. 7 beings arranged in a semicircle, waiting for him. They were larger than the other consciousnesses around them, more radiant, more powerful. They emanated authority and wisdom, and something else, love, deep, unconditional love, that had no judgment in it, only acceptance and understanding. Nathan felt himself being drawn toward them, pulled gently into the center of their semicircle, and he understood, without being told, who they were. The Council of Elders, the beings who had helped him plan this current lifetime before he was born, the ones who knew exactly why he felt so lost, because they'd helped him choose this particular path with all its difficulties and challenges. Nathan stood, or rather existed, in the center of the semicircle, surrounded by the 7 elders. They didn't have physical bodies in any conventional sense, but each one had a distinct presence, a unique quality of consciousness that he could perceive and distinguish from the others. The elder directly in front of him radiated gold and amber light. This one felt ancient, impossibly old, carrying wisdom accumulated across countless ages. Nathan instinctively thought of this elder as his primary guide, the one most directly involved in his soul's development across many lifetimes. To the left were three more elders. One emanated blue and silver light and felt associated with knowledge, teaching, intellectual development. Another glowed with green and violet hues and seemed connected to healing, compassion, emotional growth. The third on that side pulsed with red and orange light, carrying energy related to courage, action, transformation through challenge. On the right were the final three. One shimmered with white and crystalline light, representing purity of intention, clarity of purpose. Another displayed soft pink and lavender colors, embodying unconditional love, connection, relationships. The last elder on that side showed deep purple and indigo light, associated with spiritual development, consciousness expansion, the journey inward. The golden elder at the center communicated first, not with words, but with direct transmission of meaning that bypassed language entirely. Nathan received the communication as pure understanding, as if the knowledge was being downloaded directly into his awareness. Welcome home, Nathan. You have done well to find your way back here, even if only temporarily. You came seeking answers about your purpose, about why your current life feels difficult and incomplete. We will show you. We will help you remember what you chose before you incarnated. Nathan felt a wave of emotion, relief at being recognized, at being welcomed, gratitude for the chance to understand, and underneath those feelings, a deep sense of having been here before, of this being his true home in a way that Earth never had been. The Golden Elder continued, "Before we show you your current life plan, you need to understand the context. You need to see where you've been, what you've learned, how this current lifetime fits into your soul's larger journey." Images began to form in Nathan's awareness. Not pictures exactly, but experiential memories, like watching movies where he was simultaneously the viewer and the actor. He saw himself in other lifetimes, other bodies, other circumstances. He was a farmer in medieval Europe, living a simple life close to the land, learning about patience and persistence, about working with nature's rhythms. He died at 67, surrounded by children and grandchildren, satisfied with a life well lived, even if it had been unremarkable. He was a merchant in ancient China, traveling the Silk Road, learning about different cultures, developing adaptability and resilience. That life ended young, at 32, killed by bandits on a remote mountain pass. He died afraid but also curious, wondering what came next. He was a woman in colonial America, a midwife helping other women through childbirth, learning about the mysteries of life and death, about being present during the most vulnerable moments. She lived to 71, dying peacefully in her sleep after delivering over 300 babies. He was a soldier in World War I, experiencing the horror of modern warfare, learning about courage and fear, about the bonds that form between people facing death together. That life ended at 19, in a trench in France, from wounds that bled him out slowly over hours. He died angry at the waste of it, at the senselessness. Nathan experienced each death fully, felt the transition from physical existence to this spiritual realm. And after each lifetime, he came back here, to this council chamber, to review what he'd learned, to process the experiences, to plan the next incarnation. The pattern became clear. Each lifetime had a focus, a primary lesson or skill to develop. Some lives were long and peaceful, allowing steady growth in particular areas. Other lives were short and traumatic, providing intense learning experiences that couldn't be achieved through comfort and ease. The Golden Elder showed him more. Between lives, Nathan didn't just review and plan. He spent time in what could only be described as soul school, studying with teachers and guides, learning about the nature of reality, about consciousness, about energy and vibration, and how the universe actually worked. Knowledge that couldn't be accessed while incarnated in physical form because the human brain couldn't process it. He also spent time with his soul group, the cluster of souls who incarnated together repeatedly, playing different roles in each other's lives, sometimes as family members, sometimes as friends, sometimes as enemies or rivals, all of them helping each other learn and grow through their interactions. Nathan recognized some of these souls. His mother, in this current lifetime, was a soul he'd been connected to for thousands of years, sometimes as parent, sometimes as child, sometimes as spouse. His best friend from college was another member of his soul group, someone who always seemed to show up in his lives at crucial moments. But there were other souls in his group who he didn't recognize, who apparently weren't incarnated right now, or who were living somewhere else on Earth, their paths not crossing with his in this current lifetime. The Golden Elder's communication turned more specific. Now you understand the context. Now we can show you your current life plan, what you chose, what you agreed to, and why. The scene shifted. Nathan found himself watching his own conception, his consciousness hovering near his future parents as they came together, as the biological process began that would create the body he'd inhabit. He saw his soul gradually merging with the developing fetus, a process that happened over months rather than instantly. As his consciousness slowly adjusted to being trapped in physical form again, he saw the council meeting that had happened before his conception, his soul, Nathan's soul, sitting in this same semicircle, discussing the upcoming lifetime with the elders. The blue and silver elder had spoken then about intellectual challenges. In this lifetime, you will have a strong analytical mind, but also a tendency to overthink, to get trapped in your head, to disconnect from your emotions and intuition. This is partly your natural inclination, but also part of the lesson. You need to learn to balance intellect with feeling, logic with intuition. The green and violet elder had discussed emotional challenges. You will incarnate into a family where emotional expression is limited, where feelings are suppressed and not discussed. Your parents will be good people but emotionally distant. This will create wounds that you'll need to heal, but it will also teach you about self-sufficiency, about finding your own emotional center rather than relying on others to validate your feelings. The red and orange elder had addressed challenges related to action and purpose. You will spend the first 30 to 35 years of your life feeling directionless, unsure of your purpose, following paths that don't fulfill you. This period of confusion is necessary. You need to exhaust the options that won't work before you can fully commit to the path that will. And you need to develop the frustration and hunger that will eventually drive you toward your true mission. Nathan watched his soul self listening to all of this, asking questions, expressing concerns. It sounded hard. It sounded lonely. Why choose such a difficult path? The Golden Elder had answered. Because you are ready for difficult. Your soul has completed the basic lessons. You've learned about survival, about relationships, about managing emotions and developing intellect. Now you're ready for more advanced work. This lifetime is about finding authentic purpose in a world designed to distract from purpose, about maintaining connection to your spiritual truth while fully immersed in physical reality, about becoming a bridge between worlds. Your specific mission will unfold gradually. In your early 30s, you'll begin to feel the pull more strongly. The dissatisfaction will intensify until you can no longer ignore it. And then, if you're brave enough to follow the pull, you'll begin to remember. You'll begin to access the knowledge and abilities you've developed across many lifetimes, and you'll begin the work you actually came here to do. Nathan's soul self had asked what that work was specifically. What was he supposed to do? The council had been somewhat vague in their response. The details will depend on the choices you make, the opportunities that present themselves, the cultural context of the time period. But in essence, you are here to teach, to help others remember who they truly are, where they come from, what they're capable of. You'll do this not through preaching or proselytizing, but through example, through presence, through sharing your own journey of remembering. You've spent many lifetimes developing the skills needed for this work. Compassion from your life as a midwife, resilience from your life as a merchant, courage from your life as a soldier, intellectual capacity from your current life's focus on analytical thinking. All of these pieces will come together, will integrate, will allow you to serve in the way your soul has prepared to serve. Nathan watched his soul self considering this. It was a lot. The prospect of 30+ years of confusion and directionlessness was daunting. But his soul had understood something important. Growth didn't happen through easy lives. It happened through challenge, through struggle, through being forced to dig deep and find resources you didn't know you had. And there was another factor. His soul group had incarnated with him. They would be there, in various roles, offering support and challenge at appropriate times. He wouldn't be completely alone, even when he felt alone. His soul self had agreed to the plan, had chosen the parents, the location, the basic circumstances, had accepted the challenges as necessary for the mission, had committed to the lifetime despite knowing how difficult it would be. And then the veil of forgetting had descended. As Nathan was born, as his consciousness merged fully with his infant body. The memories of this planning session and all his previous lifetimes had been blocked, not erased, but made inaccessible to normal conscious awareness, because if he remembered everything, he wouldn't fully experience being human. The forgetting was part of the design. Nathan watched his life unfold from this higher perspective, saw himself as a child, sensitive and thoughtful, never quite fitting in with other kids. Saw his teenage years, feeling like an outsider, interested in questions about meaning and purpose that his peers didn't seem to care about. Saw his 20s, trying different career paths, none of them feeling right. Saw his early 30s, the mounting frustration and sense of wasting time, and he saw the plan working. Every difficult experience was teaching him something. Every relationship that didn't work out was showing him what he didn't want, helping him clarify what he did want. Every job that felt meaningless was increasing his hunger for meaningful work. The confusion wasn't random, it was purposeful. It was designed to bring him to exactly this moment, this session, this remembering. The Golden Elder communicated again. You are at the threshold now, Nathan. The confusing phase is nearly complete. You've exhausted the paths that don't serve you. You've developed the frustration necessary to motivate real change, and now you've found your way back here, to us, to remember what you came here to do. What happens next is up to you. You have free will. You can ignore what you're learning here, can dismiss this as fantasy or hallucination, can go back to your safe but unsatisfying life as an accountant, or you can choose to honor the plan you made before you were born, can choose to begin the real work, can choose to step into your purpose. Either choice is acceptable to us. We don't judge, we don't punish. If you choose the safe path, you'll learn different lessons, and in your next lifetime, you'll try again. But if you choose the path of purpose, if you choose to remember and act on that memory, you'll fulfill the potential of this incarnation. You'll do the work you came here to do. Nathan felt overwhelmed by the weight of the choice. Part of him wanted to refuse, wanted to go back to the comfortable numbness of his ordinary life. Following your purpose sounded inspiring in theory, but in practice it meant uncertainty, risk, the possibility of failure. But another part of him, a deeper part, recognized the truth of what the elders were showing him. The dissatisfaction he'd been feeling wasn't a problem to be fixed. It was a signal, a wake-up call, his soul trying to get his attention and redirect him toward his true path. He addressed the Golden Elder directly, his thoughts forming into communication. What exactly am I supposed to do? You said, I'm here to teach, to help others remember. But how? What does that actually look like? The elder's response was gentle but firm. We cannot give you a detailed roadmap. That would defeat the purpose. Part of your lesson is learning to trust your intuition, to follow the pull even when you don't have all the answers, to take action based on inner knowing rather than external certainty. But we can tell you this. Your teaching won't look like traditional teaching. You won't be standing in front of classrooms or writing academic texts. Your teaching will come through your presence, through your willingness to be authentic about your own journey, through creating spaces where others feel safe to explore their own consciousness. The specific form it takes will depend on what opportunities present themselves and what choices you make. You might work one-on-one with people. You might create content that reaches people you never meet in person. You might facilitate groups or workshops. The details will unfold naturally if you follow the guidance you receive. Nathan felt both reassured and still uncertain. He wanted more specifics, more guarantees, but he also understood that what the elder was saying made sense. If they gave him a complete blueprint, he'd just be following instructions, rather than developing his own inner knowing and trust. The pink and lavender elder, the one associated with love and relationships, communicated next. There is another part of your plan we haven't discussed yet. In approximately 18 months, you will meet someone, a woman who is also awakening to her purpose, who is also part of your soul group. You've been together in many lifetimes, sometimes as romantic partners, sometimes in other configurations. In this lifetime, you're meant to be together, to support each other's missions, to create something together that neither of you could create alone. But this partnership will only manifest if you're on your path. If you remain stuck in your current life, you won't be in the right place at the right time to meet her. Another reason to choose purpose over comfort. Nathan felt a surge of hope and longing. He'd been single for years, had almost given up on finding meaningful partnership. The idea that there was someone out there, someone specifically meant for him, someone he'd loved across multiple lifetimes, was almost too good to be true. But I'm not ready, he communicated to the elder. I don't know how to do any of this. I don't feel qualified to teach anyone anything. I'm just an accountant who feels lost. The golden elder responded with what could only be described as cosmic amusement. None of us feel ready when we begin important work. Readiness is developed through doing, not achieved before starting. You have everything you need right now. The knowledge is within you, accumulated across lifetimes. You just need to trust it enough to access it. And you won't be doing this alone. Your guides, including me, are always with you. We cannot intervene directly in your physical life, but we can send guidance through intuition, through synchronicities, through dreams and meditation. If you learn to listen, if you learn to trust the subtle nudges, you'll always know what the next right step is. The purple and indigo elder, the one associated with spiritual development, added a final piece. The work you came here to do isn't just for others, it's also for you. By teaching others to remember who they truly are, you complete your own remembering. By helping others awaken, you solidify your own awakening. Service to others is never separate from service to self. They're two aspects of the same thing. Nathan felt tears forming, which was strange since he didn't have physical eyes in this form, but the emotion was real and powerful. He felt seen, understood, supported in a way he'd never felt in his physical life. These beings knew him completely, loved him unconditionally, wanted only for him to fulfill his potential and be happy. The Golden Elder sent a final message. It's time for you to return now. You've remembered what you need to remember. The rest will unfold as you're ready for it. Trust the process. Trust yourself. Trust that you chose this life for good reasons and that you have everything you need to fulfill your mission. We will be here, watching, supporting, sending guidance. And when this lifetime is complete, when you return here after death, we'll review it together. We'll celebrate your successes and learn from your challenges. And then we'll plan the next lifetime, the next adventure, the next opportunity for growth. You are loved. You are never alone. Go now and remember who you are. Nathan felt himself being pulled away from the council chamber, drawn back down through the tunnel of light toward his physical body. He wanted to stay, wanted to remain in that space of perfect understanding and unconditional love. But he also understood that he couldn't stay. He had work to do. He had a mission to fulfill. He had chosen to be human for a reason, and that reason was calling him back. Nathan opened his eyes in Dr. Chun's office, feeling like he'd been gone for hours even though the clock showed only 90 minutes had passed. His face was wet with tears. His body felt heavy and light at the same time, like he was still partially in that other realm while also being back in physical form. Dr. Chen sat quietly, her face showing the gentle attention of someone who'd witnessed many people returning from profound experiences. She let Nathan sit in silence for several minutes, giving him time to reorient, to come fully back to ordinary consciousness. What did you experience? She finally asked. Nathan tried to find words, but they felt impossibly inadequate. How do you describe meeting the beings who planned your life? How do you capture the feeling of remembering why you chose to be born, what you came here to do? How do you express the profound shift that happens when you understand that nothing in your life has been random or meaningless, that every challenge was chosen for a reason? He did his best, describing the Council of Elders, the life review, the mission he'd agreed to before birth. Dr. Chun listened without judgment, nodding occasionally, asking clarifying questions but mostly just witnessing his process. When he finished, she smiled slightly. This is consistent with what many of my clients report. The structure of the council, the life planning process, the sense of mission. It's remarkably similar across different people who have no contact with each other. That suggests you're accessing something real, something that exists independent of your individual imagination. Nathan felt validated but also overwhelmed. So what do I do now? They told me I'm supposed to start teaching, to help others remember who they are. But I still don't know what that actually means in practical terms. Dr. Chen leaned forward. The specifics will unfold naturally if you start moving in the right direction. You don't need to have everything figured out before you begin. You just need to take the first step. What does your intuition tell you? What feels like the next right action? Nathan thought about it. The answer came not from his rational mind, but from somewhere deeper. I need to quit my job. I need to stop doing work that feels meaningless and create space for work that matters. That terrifies me because I don't know what I'll do instead or how I'll pay my bills. But I know that's the first step. Dr. Chen nodded. Trust that knowing. The elders told you they'd send guidance through intuition and synchronicity. This is what that looks like. A clear knowing about what needs to happen next. Even when it doesn't make logical sense, if you follow it, the next step will become clear. And then the next. That's how purpose unfolds, one step at a time. Nathan left her office feeling both scared and exhilarated. He'd come looking for answers about why his life felt wrong. And he'd gotten answers that were bigger and more profound than anything he could have imagined. Now he had to decide whether to act on those answers or retreat back into comfortable numbness. Over the following weeks, Nathan sat with the experience, processing it, testing whether the memory remained as vivid and real as it had initially felt. Sometimes past life memories or spiritual experiences faded upon return to ordinary consciousness, losing their power and certainty. But this didn't fade. If anything, it became clearer, more integrated, more undeniable. He also noticed changes in his daily life. Synchronicities increased dramatically. He'd think about something and then encounter information about it unexpectedly. He'd need guidance about a decision, and the right person or resource would appear seemingly out of nowhere. It was like the universe was responding to his new openness, sending clear signals to help him navigate. His intuition, which he'd always dismissed as unreliable, became louder and more precise. He'd know things without knowing how he knew them, would feel pulled in certain directions without logical reasons. And when he followed those pulls, things worked out in ways that felt orchestrated. 3 weeks after his session with Dr. Chen, Nathan quit his accounting job. He gave 2 weeks' notice, professionally and politely, with no real plan for what would come next. His parents thought he was having a breakdown. His friends thought he was being irresponsible. But Nathan felt calm and certain in a way he never had before. 2 days after his last day of work, he received an unexpected call. A friend of a friend who ran a meditation center was looking for someone to help manage the business side of the operation. It wouldn't pay as much as accounting, but it would be enough to cover his basic expenses, and it would put him in an environment where he'd be surrounded by people interested in consciousness and spiritual development. Nathan took the job, recognizing it as exactly the kind of synchronicity the elders had promised. This wasn't his final destination, but it was a step in the right direction, a bridge between his old life and whatever his new life was going to become. Working at the meditation center exposed Nathan to teachers, practices, and ideas he'd never encountered before. He started meditating regularly, finding that the practice helped him maintain connection to the clarity he'd experienced in the council chamber. He attended workshops on energy healing, consciousness studies, different spiritual traditions, and he started talking to people, sharing his own experience carefully, gauging who was open to hearing it. He found that many people carried the same sense of missing something, of being here for a reason they couldn't quite remember. His story resonated with them, gave them permission to explore their own consciousness, to trust their own intuition. 6 months after quitting accounting, Nathan started facilitating a small discussion group at the meditation center. Nothing formal, just a circle of people meeting weekly to discuss consciousness, purpose, spiritual experiences. The group grew organically through word of mouth, attracting people who were also awakening, also remembering, also trying to figure out how to live authentically in a world that encouraged distraction and conformity. Nathan discovered he had a gift for creating safe spaces where people could explore vulnerable topics without judgment. His own journey, his willingness to be honest about his doubts and challenges, helped others feel comfortable sharing their own experiences. The teaching the elders had mentioned was happening naturally, not through lecturing, but through presence and authentic sharing. 14 months after his regression session, Nathan attended a workshop on past life regression, thinking he might want to train in the technique to offer it to his discussion group. And there he met Sarah. She was sitting across the circle during introductions, and when their eyes met, Nathan felt a jolt of recognition so intense it took his breath away. He knew her, not from this lifetime, but from others, many others. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that this was the woman the pink elder had mentioned, the partner who was meant to share his mission. After the workshop, they talked for hours over coffee. Sarah had a similar story. She'd been working as a lawyer, successful but unfulfilled, when a health crisis had triggered a spiritual awakening. She'd left law and was now training to become a hypnotherapist, specifically interested in past life regression and life between lives work. They both felt the connection, the sense of having been waiting for each other. Within weeks, they were inseparable. Within months, they were living together. And they began to see how their paths complemented each other, how they could create something together that amplified both their missions. Sarah brought clinical training and structured methodology. Nathan brought intuitive insight and the ability to create community. Together, they developed a program that combined past life regression with group integration work, helping people not just remember their soul's journey but also apply that knowledge to their current lives. The work grew beyond what either of them could have created alone. They attracted clients from around the world, people who were also waking up, also remembering, also trying to figure out how to live from their soul's truth rather than society's expectations. Nathan thought often about the Council of Elders, about the life plan they'd shown him. Every major element they'd mentioned had manifested. The period of confusion in his 20s and early 30s, the awakening around age 32, the development of his teaching through authentic presence rather than formal instruction, the meeting with Sarah, all of it had unfolded exactly as planned. Not through force but through following inner guidance and trusting the process. He also understood more deeply why the early years had been so difficult. If he'd found his purpose easily, if everything had worked out smoothly, he wouldn't have developed the compassion and understanding necessary to help others through their own struggles. The confusion and frustration weren't obstacles to his mission, they were preparation for it. 5 years after his regression session, Nathan's life was unrecognizable from his life as an accountant. He and Sarah had opened their own center, offering regression work, workshops, training programs. They'd written a book together about soul planning and life purpose. They'd built a community of people committed to living consciously, to remembering who they truly were. And Nathan had developed his own ability to access the spiritual realm. Through regular meditation and practice, he could now connect with his guides, including the Golden Elder, who had been his primary teacher across lifetimes. The connection wasn't as clear as it had been in Dr. Chun's office, but it was real and reliable enough to provide ongoing guidance. He understood now what the elders had meant about teaching being inseparable from learning. By helping others remember their soul's journey, he deepened his own remembering. By supporting others in finding their purpose, he clarified his own. The work wasn't separate from his own growth, it was his growth. Before you were born, you sat with the Council of Elders and planned this life. You chose your parents, your challenges, your gifts. You agreed to forget who you truly are so you could experience the journey of remembering, and you identified your mission, the specific contribution your soul came here to make. That plan still exists, encoded in your deepest knowing, waiting for you to be ready to remember. The confusion you feel, the sense that something's missing, that's not a problem. That's your soul trying to get your attention, trying to redirect you toward the path you chose before the forgetting. The question is whether you're ready to listen. Subscribe for more stories of souls who remembered why they came.